Hi everyone, welcome back to the Simple English Podcast. I'm your host Lisa, and today we're diving into a topic that I think will really help many of you. We all know that speaking English can be one of the hardest parts of learning a new language. I remember when I first started learning English, I could understand a lot, but speaking confidently, that was a real challenge. Let me ask you, have you ever felt nervous speaking English, even though you've studied it for years? I've been there too. But one thing that changed everything for me was, believe it or not, podcasts. Yes, podcasts helped me improve my English speaking in ways I never imagined. And today, I'm going to share exactly how that happened and give you some tips on how you can use podcasts to boost your speaking skills too. So whether you're just starting or you've been learning English for a while, stay tuned, because this episode is packed with practical advice that can take your speaking to the next level. As always, don't forget to check out the free PDF file in the comment section below to get the full transcript and vocabulary for this episode. All right, let's dive into the story of how podcasts helped me speak English better. When I first started learning, I had the same problem many people have. I understood English pretty well, but when it was time to speak, I froze. I didn't know how to say what I was thinking, or I was afraid I'd make mistakes. That's when I started looking for different ways to practice speaking. I had already been listening to podcasts to improve my listening skills. One of my favorite shows was a podcast about daily English conversations. I loved listening to native speakers chat in a natural way. But one day, I realized, why not use this as a speaking tool too? Here's what I did that made a huge difference. 1. Shadowing technique. First, I started using a method called shadowing. While listening to the podcast, I would repeat what the speakers were saying, almost like I was having the conversation with them. For example, I'd listen to a simple dialogue about ordering food at a restaurant. After hearing it once or twice, I'd pause and repeat the phrases out loud. It was like having a conversation partner who never got tired of me practicing. This helped me get comfortable with how English sounds, and it trained my mouth to form the words correctly. 2. Mimicking the tone and pace. One thing that surprised me was how much speaking is about rhythm and tone, not just words. Podcasts helped me understand that. When you listen to native speakers, you notice how they emphasize certain words, how their voices go up and down in a sentence, and how they pause naturally. I started mimicking these patterns when I spoke. For instance, when a podcast host would tell a story, I'd listen to how they emphasized key points, and then I'd try to imitate that. Slowly, my speaking started to sound more natural and less robotic. 3. Speaking in context. Another big change came when I began focusing on context. Instead of just learning random words, I practiced using phrases I heard in real conversations from the podcasts. For example, after listening to a podcast about giving directions, I practiced speaking those phrases with friends or even to myself. When I needed to give directions later, the words came out much more naturally because I had already spoken them during my practice sessions. 4. Creating my own speaking challenges. A fun way I practiced was by setting myself little challenges based on the podcasts I listened to. For instance, I'd challenge myself to retell the podcast episode in my own words. This was so useful. It helped me take what I heard and make it my own, building my confidence to express ideas in English. One time, after listening to a podcast about a weekend trip, I spent 5 minutes explaining to my friend what the episode was about. It felt like I was training myself to think in English, not just translate from my native language. 5. Consistency is key. One of the best things about using podcasts is that they fit into my daily routine. I didn't have to sit down for hours to practice speaking. I'd listen during my morning walk or when I was cooking and repeat phrases out loud. This consistency helped me build my speaking skills little by little, every day. Fun fact. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that the technique of shadowing, which I mentioned earlier, is used by professional language learners and even diplomats? They use this method to quickly get used to the sound and flow of new languages. Shadowing isn't just for beginners. It's a technique that helps anyone, no matter their level, to sound more like a native speaker. I found this out after doing it for a few weeks, and it really encouraged me to keep going. So that's how podcasts helped me improve my English speaking. It wasn't overnight, but with consistent practice, I went from being nervous about speaking to feeling much more confident. The key takeaways here are: use podcasts to shadow and repeat conversations. Focus on how native speakers sound and try to imitate their rhythm and tone. Practice speaking in context, not just with random words. Challenge yourself to retell what you hear in podcasts. And most importantly, be consistent. A little practice every day adds up. I hope my experience has given you some useful ideas on how you can improve your English speaking too. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes. It's all part of the learning process. The most important thing is to keep practicing and have fun with it. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Simple English Podcast. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And feel free to comment below. Let me know if you've used podcasts to help with your speaking, or if you have other tips that have worked for you. I'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, keep learning and keep speaking confidently. Bye for now. Now it's time to learn some important vocabulary related to the topic. First word is shadowing. It means a language learning technique where you listen and repeat speech. Example: I used the shadowing technique while listening to podcasts to improve my English speaking skills. Next word is mimic. It means to copy or imitate someone's speech or actions. Example: I mimicked the podcast host's tone and pace to sound more like a native speaker. Next word is intonation. It means the rise and fall of the voice in speaking, which affects meaning and emotion. Example: by practicing with podcasts, I learned how to use proper intonation to make my English sound more natural. Next word is pronunciation. It means the way in which a word is spoken or pronounced. Example: I focused on improving my pronunciation by repeating words I heard in podcasts. Next word is rhythm. It means the natural flow or beat in speech, often connected to stress and timing of words. Example: I practiced the rhythm of English speech by copying the conversational style of podcast hosts. Next word is consistent. It means regular and steady over time, without significant changes. Example: I made consistent practice a habit by listening to podcasts every morning. Next word is context. It means the circumstances or situation in which a word or phrase is used, which helps in understanding its meaning. Example: by listening to podcasts, I learned how to use new vocabulary in the right context. Next word is confidence. It means a feeling of self-assurance or belief in one's abilities. Example: speaking out loud while listening to podcasts helped me gain confidence in my English speaking skills. The last word is emphasize. It means to give special importance to something when speaking. Example: I learned how to emphasize keywords by listening to how the podcast speakers did it. Thank you for listening to our episode of the Simple English Podcast. I hope you learned something new and helpful today. Please give us a like and subscribe for video like this. Share it with your friends, and let us know what you think in the comments section below. We'll be back with more interesting discussions soon.